Hi everyone, it's so great to see so many people connected with us today. I know a lot of people have been connected with us since 4 a.m. this morning, so that's quite a long time. But as Poppy said, our session is going to talk about all things about recruiting international students in 2021 and what will that look like. I'm so pleased to be joined by some of our colleagues from our partner universities today to discuss what they have learned from moving their activity online and how their plans are shaping for 2021. So the session today will be in the format of a live Q&A where I will run through some questions with all our guests on this call today. And then afterwards, we'll take some questions from the audience as well. I'll just go around everyone individually again, but a quick intro from my end. As I said before, my name is Carolina and I'm one of the customer success managers here at Unibuddy, working with our UK customers as well as our Nordic and Southern European customers. As part of my role at Unibuddy, I work directly with the universities and institutions to make sure that they can get the best out of the use of their platform. So what I'm going to do is pass over to Sharon first, who's the Communication and Marketing Officer at Vrije Amsterdam.
Hey everyone, what a pleasure to be here. My name is Sharon. I have been working at Vrije Amsterdam since February of 2019. And before that, I always worked in more commercial environments, such as the headquarters of McDonald's in the Netherlands. In my role, I'm responsible for all marketing materials for our international programs, so brochures, stuff like that. I also arrange the logistics for fairs. Well, they used to be, of course, physical, now mostly virtual. I coordinate the international introduction for new students, and finally I helped set up Unibuddy at our university.
That's great, Sharon. I'll now move it over to Sanna, who's a marketing specialist at University of Helsinki.
Hey everyone, really nice to be here. Before I say anything about myself, I would love to praise the moment because it's really not that often that you get to talk about peer-to-peer marketing and recruitment to this extent. So it's been a pleasure to see all the sessions before this. But yes, I'm a marketing specialist at the University of Helsinki at the moment. I've been doing ambassador activities or coordinating them for quite a few years. And since last autumn, we've been renewing our ambassador activities here. So it's what I basically do for my living at the moment, and I'm enjoying it.
That's great. And finally, on to Denise, who's the coordinator in student recruitment and admissions at University College Roosevelt.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. And it's great to be here. And thank you for joining us. My name is Denise. I work for University College Roosevelt, and I've been there since 2013. And I work, I oversee all recruitment activities and all admissions, which means that, yes, I oversee our ambassadors and our uni buddies, but I'm also responsible for the fairs, the marketing materials, the orientation, the admissions process, and everything that is included in that.
That's excellent. It's so exciting having you all here today to discuss this in further detail. So I've got some questions for you all. There is quite a few of us on the call, so what I might do is just assign the questions to some of you. And if anybody else has anything to add, then please feel free to do so. But my first question is, how long have you been using peer-to-peer? And I'm going to go with Sanna first.
All right. So peer-to-peer marketing or recruitment has been there forever. I think it might even apply to all universities or higher education institutions, but more systematically, it's been sort of gradually changed. And I would say that, it's been there all the time, but now since last autumn 2019 at the University of Helsinki, we actually implemented a new program or student ambassador activities, combining all our sort of target group languages, so Finnish, Swedish and English. So that's what we're doing now.
Excellent. Sharon, over to you.
Yeah, I think so. What Sanna is saying, peer-to-peer has always been there, but I feel that the last couple of years it professionalized a lot. So a lot of ambassador programs. We started in 2017 with an ambassador program. Of course, before that there was peer-to-peer, but not as professionalized as it is now. And then in May 2020, so quite still fresh, we started with Unibuddy. And we started as a pilot, and now we decided that in this academic year, it will be the only way that prospective students can reach our ambassadors because it was such a success.
That's great. And over to you, Denise.
Yeah, I mean, the same. I think, and I'm sure Sharon can attest to that, at least for the national market in the Netherlands, peer-to-peer has been pretty much the only way to do recruitment for a very, very long time. And I agree, we've also now adapted that a few years back, because we do our marketing for national and international pretty much in one go the same way, because we are only a small team and a small university. So yeah, I see the same. It's always been very important, but it's adapting that national policy to an international global market that has been an interesting change for the last few years.
Yeah, and I guess you've all mentioned that you've been working with ambassadors previously, and this is not a new thing for you all. And obviously, you've got a difference between national, so domestic students, and international. I would really love to hear, and the rest of us watching today would really love to hear how you went about recruiting your student ambassadors, and if you have any best tips on recruiting them, and maybe we can touch upon that difference between international and domestic. Let me go with Denise first.
Well, we actually use a lot of peer-to-peer there as well, I would say.
Yeah.
We have a small contingent of students who are just happy to do whatever you asked of them. And that sort of spirals through the university, and having them actually promote the idea of being an ambassador, of being a uni buddy, of being involved with the university somehow or other has been the most successful thing to do. So making sure that once you have a few, making sure that they are happy and can spread the word for you, that's been quite useful for us.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because one thing that we have seen in a lot of the sessions today has been that whole idea of utilizing your ambassadors and using them as key drivers in your recruitment. So that's amazing. Sanna, how about Helsinki?
That's the traditional way also in our case. That's been how it's been done before, but now, just like Sharon was saying, there's a bit of a sort of a standardized model, or more professional, or however you want to call it. So what we're doing now, word of mouth is of course the most powerful tool here as well. So basically what we do now is we have changed from sort of rolling admissions for ambassadors. We have changed into one application period in the autumn, in the beginning of the year, academic year, and it's been mostly direct advertising for our students, and of course the ambassadors who have liked it already before, then they of course recruit new students in the field. And our goal now is also to make it more visible and to be more transparent, if you like, with the faculties as well. In our case at the University of Helsinki, the challenge really is that it's such a big university with roughly 30,000 students, and it's our challenge to also internally be able to make it as transparent as possible, so that everybody knows about it. So that's the challenge. I'm already talking about the challenge, but the way that we recruit is directly to students, because they need to be motivated, and that's the way. That's how we've been doing.
That's great. And Sharon, do you have anything to add to that in terms of differences?
Yeah, I do actually. We do the same. So word of mouth, peer-to-peer, but we also send a traditional email recruiting new ambassadors. And I think what's most important in that email is that you really focus on what's in it for them, that they will be part of a community, that we give courses and training to ambassadors, what's in it for them. And not only, we need ambassadors for this, and this activity, but really explain to them that they will be part of something bigger. And we do so by, for example, adding a testimonial by a current ambassador, or showing pictures of events we hosted together with them. So they really see the extra benefits.
Yeah. And I can see some questions coming through already, which I may just ask now rather than leave it to the end. But there is a question around how you incentivize or how you pay your ambassadors. Are they ambassadors in a voluntary capacity, or do they form as part of staff? I'd love to hear a bit more about how that is decided at your institutions. Sharon, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, well, it differs a bit per activity. So we are now thinking of paying them also to be on Unibody, but for us, that they are now still doing that voluntarily. I know a lot of universities do pay their students for that. For other activities, it depends. When it's a presentation or something, we pay them by the hour. Sometimes the faculty has a budget and it comes from the faculty's budget. But mostly in general, we don't invite them for activities by saying what they can earn with it. It's often more a surprise afterwards, like, hey, here is a coupon or here is a gift card or something like that. So it's really intrinsic, not sure if that's the correct word. It's their own motivation to participate, and then payment is just an extra.
Yeah, really interesting way of doing it, actually. Great. Denise, what about you?
Yeah, it's the same for us. It differs a little bit. So we have a sort of a real ambassador team, a core team that I would happily send out to replace me at any kind of event, because they've been trained up, they know what they're talking about, and they get paid by the hour. They are on a contract. Then for sort of open days for which we need a lot more students than just our ambassadors, there is a small incentive, but it's the same as with Sharon. We only tell them afterwards. It's more intrinsic motivation. And then the Unibuddies, that is also on a voluntary basis completely. Also because it provides, they're providing the authentic student voice. So we're trying not to mingle into that too much by training and all of that. Of course, there is the tricky bit in Europe that students need to have a contract if you pay them, if they're non-European students. So that also plays into those discussions and conversations as to how to, incentivize students.
Yeah, really good point there, I think, on the international ambassador side of things. Sanna, how about at Helsinki?
We do also have some tasks that are not sort of compensated directly by paying, but for most tasks we do have sort of a list of payments what the student ambassadors get. But I do agree that it's not the only way. It should never be that way, that you always get paid for everything, because it does leave room for development as well, and the will to need, or the will to do these things is also, the attitude really counts. And that you can actually, just to say that you can actually see the difference, who really wants to do it and who is there for the money as well. So but there are different ways. And of course, one of the biggest things is also that we do offer, like all of us probably, but we do offer different trainings, and for example, trainings that are related to finding a job and so on. So it's not only money that is involved, so there are different ways.
Great. And what would you say this peer-to-peer kind of structure that you've got at your institutions plays in your international recruitment specifically? So if I go with Denise first.
Well, we try. So as I said, peer-to-peer has always been big for what we do. What's also been really big for us, the way we approach recruitment, has been the personal touch. We're a small institution, very different from Sanna. We only have 500 students. So we want to emulate that kind of environment and that kind of experience in sort of the outreach that we do. So the peer-to-peer and creating that community and the connection with the university has been very important. More so for national than for international in the past, because it's harder to emulate that, or it was harder to emulate that for international. Now that we've adopted Unibody, and now that we've been forced to move everything online, the peer-to-peer is also becoming increasingly important for international students and getting these touch points with students.
Great. How about at VU, Sharon?
Yeah, we really try to mention the possibility that prospective students can talk to our ambassadors during every phase of their journey. So already when they first get in touch with Vrije Amsterdam, we're like, hey, but you can also ask your questions about student life, stuff like that, about the city of Amsterdam. via our ambassadors, but also later, of course, in the process when they are working on their application or stuff like that, we still mention in emails and stuff like, hey, you can also speak to ambassadors. So it's not one touch point in a journey where we mention it. We try to do it consistently. And I think that works best. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that brings me on to another question I had around how else does the voice of your students implement into your marketing? So where else do you have that implemented, Sanna?
Well, I do agree with Sharon that the student voice or the ambassador voice is there in the, in many touch points of the marketing and recruitment funnel, if you like. So interest phase and consideration phase and engagement phase. And in regarding these, we do have multiple channels. So it's social media takeovers or school visits, or nowadays online, remote online presentations, or social media takeovers, different testimonials like blogs or articles. Of course, they are the source of content marketing, if you like, and also different kinds of events when possible. But yeah, it's covered basically everywhere.
Great.
Content creation.
Great. And Denise, are you doing similar things at your institution in comparison to Sharon and Sanna?
Yeah, of course. I mean, these are your basic student takeovers, blogs, and that's the content part. Because we're such a small team, we rely quite heavily on student input for a lot of the things we do. So for example, our Instagram is actually not a student takeover, it's just run by students, which is of course tricky, and there's all kinds of considerations with that, but it's the only way we can manage it. But yeah, so also when we are able to have in-person activities, we run a student for a day program where, again, we are not involved. Students are linked to a current student studying their disciplines and can just set up a day to follow along. And that's, again, something where we sort of back off and say, this is for the students. Because this is a real authentic experience that you're going to get.
Yeah, definitely power to the peers in that instance. I think there's been so many people attending the sessions today and talking about sessions about social media takeover, and asking other institutions within the field, what are your opinions on that? But it seems like, you guys have it really nailed down in terms of social media takeover is absolutely excellent. And I think it works really well for personal human connection for a lot of students, and it's very much a part of Generation Z. I still don't know how to use TikTok, but I'll get there eventually. Fab. And how have you adapted your international recruitment strategy in the last 6 months? Sharon, I'll go with you.
Yeah, so we started working from home halfway in March, feels like decades ago. And in the beginning, it was not directly clear that we would be in this for the long run. I thought, well, after a few weeks, still all our offline recruitment efforts like physical fairs, school visits, open days, we needed to transform them to online. Not really a surprise there, I guess. So what we did is we created interactive PDFs of our brochures. We are working on a new virtual campus tour, which will be ready next week. New videos, often with our ambassadors, just pumping on online. Everything needed to go online. And we didn't go for a hybrid form. We thought, well, let's just switch it entirely. Of course, I think for a lot of universities that change already began way before the COVID situation.
Yeah,
recruitment and marketing made a shift from offline to online, but now, of course, we were forced maybe to do it a bit faster than we thought. Well, I think the biggest example is our Bachelor's Day. It's next week. And we decided to create a short video also with ambassadors for every program. So that means around 200 short videos.
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite a project. But I think that this will be what the future will hold for us as well. Like the shift came faster than expected, but it is here to stay, I guess.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see how all of you have adapted so quickly and pivoted during these times. Sanna, how have you adapted it over the last 6 months at your end?
Pretty well, actually. It's just like Sharon again says. We also were already taking the next step, or reconsidering our face-to-face events already before a COVID-19 pandemic. So in a sense, it's a little dangerous to say, but in that sense, we were lucky or happy to sort of just continue. And we actually, with this strategy in mind already, we got support from the upper management as well, revealing a bit what has happened. But I mean, it's easier to adapt to a new situation, or actually make others understand if you have been in the front line already before. Yeah. So it was really good in that sense. It does not mean that there's not, I mean, it's easy. It's, of course, there's a lot of work to do. And if I think about my own work and peer-to-peer marketing, and communicating with 130 ambassadors, who most of them were new because of the new academic year starting, a new bunch of ambassadors. Of course, it's been stressful for us in the office as well, because you don't get to meet people. It's not just that you're not there at the fairs doing the usual thing, but you need to adapt as well. And it's been a little difficult because you know inside out how it is to meet your ambassadors face to face and mingle, and also offer the little extra. But now when it's not possible, it's been really a challenge, but it's we're getting there. And of course we need to this is a good time to think about the whole of it in a new way, from a new angle.
Yeah, definitely. I'll come back to one thing that you mentioned there in a second, Sanna, but I'd love to hear, Denise, how you've adapted at your end.
Well, it's going to be very similar to what Sanna and Sharon have mentioned. As I mentioned before, we were very focused on the personal touch, and that also means the in-person recruitment and marketing opportunity. So we've really, we started doing that before, but we've really invested in sort of long-term online opportunities, like a virtual campus tour, like better nurture structures behind the scenes, all these kinds of more video content, all these things that Sharon mentioned as well. Because although I do agree that this is here to stay, I'm hopeful that it won't be the only thing that's there. So we've decided to really invest in things that can remain as we move back to a hopefully slightly more normal way of doing things for us. That a campus tour won't age necessarily as much. So that's at least short term and long term we're trying to balance.
Yeah, and I guess touching on what you just said there, Denise, and what Sanna mentioned earlier, it's not only about adapting the way you do things for prospects and student ambassadors, but it's also how you adapt things and how you work as a team as well. So we've all had to work from home since March, thinking that it would, be a short-term thing, and now not really seeing where we're going and hoping for a light at the end of the tunnel, but things are obviously going to change. What would you think, out of everything that you can think of in terms of how you've adapted over the last 6 months, what would you say has been the most successful thing in terms of engaging with your international ambassadors throughout this period? Sanna, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, if we are talking about ambassadors, how we've been engaging, I would basically actually just to be there and let them know that you are there for them, and there's an extra input in meetings online, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's in a bigger group. Of course, it's a challenge. I'm not sure how well we have actually. I would love to say that it's been a success, because you just need to listen to people in a time like this. So it's more than just the activities. You just need to put an extra input or an effort to listen to making it happen, that you actually are there to listen to people and also do something about those things, something about the worries that they might have. So adaptability, or you just have to adapt yourself as well. And another thing is that, of course, always something like a like a t-shirt or whatever, a goodie helps. But I do feel that in this during this autumn, it's been more than just the t-shirts. It's been really, really letting them know that you're there for them. So this is an overview example. Maybe somebody else wants to say something more specific.
Does anyone want to add to that?
Well, this is specifically referring to our connections with our international ambassadors, right?
Yeah, international ambassadors specifically, and then we can go on to another question I have about
Sure.
another user.
Well, I really agree with what Sana mentioned, and having letting them know that you're there, you know, that they're not the only ones going through this.
Yeah.
And also having a certain flexibility in terms of what you expect of them. They're going through this, they are students, that's what they need to focus on. They are ambassadors on top of that. And if something becomes too much for them, having the flexibility to say, okay, you know what, we'll take you off the Unibody platform for a while if that's better for you. My team of ambassadors is small. I only have 25 or so. So we've taken the time to really sit down with them and talk to them about our expectations going forward, because they're used to doing in-person events, and that's obviously not happening. Mm-hmm. So we've really taken the time to meet one-on-one, at least with our paid ambassadors, to have that conversation.
Yeah, so going the extra mile. Yeah, and I think you both hit the nail on the head there. And I know that Sharon wants to add something, so
waving around. Yeah, no, it's a specific example of something we did in the last months to engage with them more. We decided to organize somewhat of a public speaking training for our ambassadors, and this was a win-win situation, because once they can join us again at fairs or school visits, hopefully they will feel more secure, but also they need to present, of course, for their study. So it helps them also in their academic capabilities. So what we did was do this digitally. They would go into shorter groups where they would present to each other. So they had some contact with the other ambassadors again. They learned something new. And I think that was very, very great to keep them engaged and still show them that we thought of them, we wanted to help them. So yeah, that was a big success.
That's great. And I guess a lot of, you know, back end, behind the scenes work goes into that, and obviously a lot of effort from your team as well at your institutions. If you could think of anything that has been a really big success for your team, as admins, managing those ambassadors and managing that international recruitment strategy, what would one thing be in terms of a successful, even a memory or a point of reference that you may have? Denise, I can see you've probably got something up your sleeve there.
I'm just sitting here thinking, so if Sharon or Sana want to take that one first.
Well, I saw the three of us go like,
I mean, let's start. Within our team, my little small team of 5, we've made a conscious effort to meet at least twice a week on Zoom, so that we can see and talk to each other face to face. And that can be about work-related stuff, but it's also just about how are things and how are you doing and how can we make it through another week? What are the new challenges? And that's been really nice to have that face-to-face, like you would have over the coffee machine, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to recreate that moment at least. And I think for us as a team to make things work, that's probably been the most successful.
That's excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think I've had so many virtual coffee dates with my colleagues. Coffeeed out. Great. Sana, you wanted to say something as well.
I do agree with those, whatever we've been doing in the team, just to make sure that we meet informally every now and again, whether it's with the whole team or smaller sort of maybe pairs or whoever has the time to join. Because if I think about, I'm not sure if I'm going astray a bit here, but if I think about the ambassadors themselves, one of the successes has been they are usually small details. It doesn't always have to be grand, like a really good project, but I actually do have 2 examples. One was when we started with the online presentations with the students, and we actually had a combination of our international student, bachelor level international student, and a domestic student, and they were giving a presentation together, and with a little sort of a tight schedule, and one of them not really being sure because, you know, entering a Finnish sort of a territory of presentations and talking with a study advisor in a high school and so on. A little hesitant, but the feedback that they got and the idea how they did it together, so those are the ones that actually make it worthwhile. So I was not, I admit this is very bad of me, but I admit that I wasn't expecting much, but the feedback and the feeling that they were sharing with me, it was just heartbreaking. And another one is that we've been, just like Sharon, you were saying that you have this huge video project going on. We also have been making a set of new videos with the faculty members and students and or student ambassadors, and the feedback from there, and especially now when you get together and can make something like that together. So it does really combine a lot of marketing efforts as well, not just running the video, but those are the ones, and they're usually the small ones, the human touch kind of examples.
Yeah, but sometimes small things make a massive difference, right? So it's incredible to see, whether it's big or small, like the efforts that your teams are putting in. And Sharon, is there anything that you're doing differently at VUE?
Well, no, most of us already said, I think.
Yeah.
Just try to incorporate ambassadors every step of the way. And like organizing these online events, I think that works best for us right now. But also asking ambassadors, like, what do you feel would be a good way to promote our university?
Yeah.
And then they sometimes come with ideas that you're like, oh, I never thought about. Well, they said we go flyer at schools, but that's not that easy in the Netherlands to arrange. But still, they also said, well, we could have maybe a Zoom call with people from my own country. So and I didn't think of that. That's really a good idea. They have, of course, not that long ago, they were prospective students as well. They know how they want to be spoken to, which tone of voice works, etc. So just asking them for their input for your own marketing and recruitment works really well as well, I guess.
That's great. And I'd love to hear a bit more about what you believe to be your biggest challenges right now. Denise, I'll go with you first.
I think the biggest challenge, and that goes for all of us, is to make sure people stay engaged.
Yeah.
We're all, webinared out, Zoomed out, Skyped out, whatever you want to call it. We're all tired of being on the screen all day. And that being our only way of engaging with people. So we're trying to find a balance of doing events that are really big and drawing in a huge audience versus events that are maybe not so big in terms of numbers, but that are really focused, and trying to find a balance between those two, and making sure that, what we're doing might be a little bit different from what someone else is doing. And that engagement is the biggest issue.
Okay. Sharon, how about you?
Yeah, it's of course in the Netherlands. Denise and I, we both are from the Netherlands. Numbers are rising again. So since last week, we are in a partial lockdown again. It's very difficult, of course, for students to really visit our campus and get a feel of what studying in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands as a whole is like. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And of course, we try with ambassadors and with a virtual campus tour to really sell that feeling. But it's quite difficult. It's, I think, easier to sell a program digitally than sell a feeling, of course, sell a sense of what a university is like. And that is, I think, a big struggle. And we try to cope, of course, and there's a lot of uncertainty for students as well. So we are already saying, explaining in all our materials what a hybrid form of education looks like, for example, because that is probably here to stay as well. But not having students here physically, I think that is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And Sana, how about at Helsinki?
Well, Denise and Sharon mentioned the most important ones. The big notion of maintaining engagement and trying to. I think it's got a lot to do with communication, actually. So the managing expectations in different directions. So being there for your staff members, or being there for your ambassadors, and being there for your prospects, and I guess in a nutshell, again, sort of an overview answer, but staying relevant is the challenge. To maintain the sort of the standards that you have, and then trying to look into new models of doing things, because I think the student voice is also becoming more and more standard. So how do you really stand out as well? So it's a big thing. So
Really, really, really good points. And I guess challenges that, you know, you're constantly working on and finding ways to identify those challenges in terms of your plans for 2021. There's a lot of questions coming through from the audience, so I'm going to wrap up my questions with just a question around what your plans are for 2021. You've touched upon those quite a lot over the questions, but if you were to give away one action point for the rest of us on the conference today, from each of you, what would your one action point be in terms of your plan for 2021 and how you identified that? So many plans.
Yeah, well, I think in our little chat that we had amongst us before we went into this panel, we sort of hit the nail on the head, saying normally we would have our plans pretty much ready for 2021 at this point. Now, no way. And I think that's also immediately my advice, and something that we're trying to stick to is use whatever little data you have from events that you've already done online in this past few months. Use the data and be flexible in dealing with whatever comes next, and whether that is a hybrid situation or a complete new lockdown or whatever that might mean. Be flexible and listen to your data and listen to your ambassadors. Yeah, that's the only thing.
That's great. Sharon.
Yeah, I think we are all moving online, so there's nothing new in that. I think you really need to see how you can stand out and what has not been done online. So the virtual campus tour I already mentioned, we are very proud of it, but we're definitely not the only one doing something like that. Definitely not. So I think you need to look for, perhaps a social media campaign, or what we now did is launch a new campaign last week. It's called the Concept Store, where we focus on student-led organizations that started here at VU Amsterdam. So it's student-focused. It's not only selling our programs, but it's selling an idea. So I think that is my biggest takeaway, to give, search for something that has not been done yet. Easier said than done, but I think that would work best. Yeah.
Great. And Sana, how about at Helsinki?
I would say that it's really important to, in your team, whatever size of a marketing and recruitment team you have, and maybe with the help of admissions staff as well. Of course, it's important to follow all the student surveys available, and if you've run your own applicant surveys or new student surveys, they're always helpful, and especially now this year, because you get to know a little more about maybe the pandemic, the impacts, whether there is some. Yeah, there definitely is, but not for everybody. So also in that sense, take a little deeper look at your target market, and if there's something that you need to know from there, then adjust your strategy. But I think that the most important thing is that you have a plan, you have a steady plan with your team, and not too much of new things either, because then you can't adapt if you try to do new things just like that. So it's really easy to stick to the plan that you have and then be able to adjust as well. So that's what I would say, because it's really easy to panic at times. I mean, this is only human, but it's really easy to say that we have this plan, but when you're closer to the deadlines of application rounds or whatever, it's really easy to start panicking in a bit, or when you're following the trends in the world. You can't really change anything overnight anyways, although we've come online pretty efficiently. But anyways, I mean, if you understand what I mean, so there needs to be a plan, and then able to sort of reflect upon that too. So I would also go for that.
Definitely. Some really key takeaways, I think, from all of you before I open up to the floor. But I think you're hitting the nails on the heads there, and I think you have some great tips to share with the rest of the people joining us today. So we've got a few minutes to take some questions from the audience. Like I said, there's a few that have come through already, and if anybody does have any further questions, please feel free to use the chat function here. We'll be taking some more questions later on in the speakers lounge, so that's the top live feed on your left. We'd love to stay here all day, but unfortunately there are many great sessions following us. So one of the questions that came through was from Lou, one of my colleagues at Unibuddy, talking about training and how that's so important. And a few of you mentioned training for your ambassadors, especially around social media takeovers. So kind of coming back to social media takeovers and the use of Instagram or public speaking, how did you go about that training? Sharon, do you want to go?
Yeah, yeah, I want to. Yeah, so we have a training in the beginning of the year. We combine it with a kick-off event for the ambassadors. So it's a bit getting to know each other, an icebreaker activity, but also practical training. But I want to add to what Denise already said in the beginning. I think the training should not be too rigid, because we don't want to lose the real student's voice, of course. So we are not saying like, okay, this is the answer for that and this is the answer for that. We give them a list like, okay, if you don't know how to answer something about housing, refer them to this email address, etc. Of course, when they get responses they don't know what to do with, well, how should they act? Stuff like that. That is what we train them in, but nothing too strict, because I feel it's important they can just be themselves, and we see that works pretty well. So
that's great. Perfect. Do you either Sana or Denise, do you have anything to add to that? Anything that you do differently on your end?
Well, one of the very concrete top tips is that you just need to also be calm with the fact that some of the, depending on how you run it, if you have a list of weeks when the takeovers are to be taken, if people book them in advance and then you just have a standardized system or whatnot, but you need to be able to revise. You need to be able to tell them over and over again what to do. And some people, they're not all interested in all of the activities at once, or depending on how you, of course, run your activities. But especially with our case, because we have a lot of activities, not concentrating on just one, it requires a lot of training and repetition and taking people on board whenever sort of they are ready. So there's a challenge as well. But I do agree with Sharon that training, a little bit of a push or gentle forcing is needed, and then of course voluntarily taking the ideas from ambassadors as well. But yeah, it's the best thing if you have a list of links where you can actually get information about admissions or housing or visa regulations or the application process, and then just concentrate on the student experience and the journey that they've had. So then you're on the safe side.
Yeah. And kind of thinking about the tailoring of events or specific events, there's a lot of ambassadors that may be full-time students, but do any of you work with part-time students where they may not have the time to dedicate as much time to being an ambassador?
No,
Sana,
yes.
Yeah. Sana saying yes. Cool. And is there any difference there with part-time ambassadors, or do you think they put the same level of work into it?
Depends. If they've been there for many years, for example, or at least a couple of years, you get to know them, and then they can just tell you that I'm a little more busy now and I can't do this and that. Or it depends, because it's also a personal relationship between some ambassadors, because you just simply get to know them better. So it depends a little, and that's where you also need to be flexible. But of course, if there are people who you don't know that well and all of a sudden they stop doing the standard activities which you have been agreeing upon, then you just need to ask around. And of course, that's yet another example. I wouldn't want to promote it to them that if you are working part-time, do this and that, because of course you would like to have those ambassadors who are dedicated to this and not having a whole lot of other things on the side. But yeah, it's also the one thing that you need to also be ready to discuss and also ask around and tell them, but maybe not actively promote.
Great, perfect. Another question's come through. I can see here from Abby from Chalmers. Do any of you run Unibuddy live sessions? And if yes, what do you use it for and why?
Not yet, so I cannot answer this, unfortunately.
No problem.
We've done one, and that's just, we've done one the day applications opened up. So it's just specifically to ask questions about, for students ready to start submitting their applications, just about anything related to the application. So very, very tailored. to that specific date and that specific day, and that's how we hope to use the Unibuddy live events, where it's not possible for one of us to be online all day, but it's a day where we expect a lot of questions to come in. That's what we use the live events for.
Perfect.
Yeah, writing that one down, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a recommendation from my part, as being a CSM and working with a couple of you already, and we've discussed this before today, it's all about tailoring those sessions and having those different options, whether they're small events or big events as well. And there's another question that's come through around international students. Do you provide sessions or programming for parents? Denise, yeah, let's go with you first.
Yeah, it started with our open day, where we, over the last few years, there's been a shift where previously about a third of the public would be parents. Now it's about 2/3 of the public that's parents. And we see that also in the Netherlands, even though parents are not usually such a huge impact, that's changing. And we started to adapt to that. So what we've done for our open day is to spread them apart, have a student Q&A panel where there's students and ambassadors running the Q&A panel for students. And then what we've done is do a parent Q&A with, some of them, the deans and the important peoples of the universities, also particularly in Dutch, because our program is international, so everything we run at an open day is in English, which is not always easy for our Dutch parents to follow. So that's how it started. We then started to spread, offer a Dutch and an English parent session, and that's something that we've done also, had to implement for our online open day. So we kept the parent Q&A session for that, because very different questions come up, and also sometimes questions that, we know that students don't want to ask certain questions in front of their parents, but it's also the other way around, where parents don't always want to ask particular questions in front of their children, without being shushed. So it's been something that's been an interesting experience to see that sort of grow, but something definitely there to stay.
Really interesting. And I do want to jump to, I think, what will be the final question, because we are running out of time, but I think it's a really interesting one. And that's a question around what would be one feature or tool that doesn't currently exist, but you believe would change your life if you could only pick one.
You mean in Unibuddy or more in general?
It can be in Unibuddy or in general, in terms of thinking about international strategy and maybe moving online.
I have two.
Oh, great, Sana, let's go.
If there was an overall, a universal solution to student payments, voluntary, payments, how you run those, or a little more flexible than most of the universities maybe have. And then different events, or let's say these presentations. So if there would be a tool really mastering or almost like a CRM system, but it's not quite. So those two things, payments and presentations or / visits, coordinating those. That would be my ultimate dream.
Cool. Taking note. That's perfect. I'm sure all our product team are taking note of this as well now. Great. Denise, how about you?
I think my dream would be a platform, probably like Unibuddy, where students who have been accepted into the university can engage, and that is away from social media, because right now we do that through Facebook and Discord and all these things, but we can't force students to be on those platforms. We can't force them to be anywhere really, but having our own platform to create that community before students start would be one of my dreams.
Yeah, so almost like post-enrollment.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I love that.
Community. Yeah, but it works really well. So of course it also takes time to maintain and make sure that students keep coming back. But we don't want to use it too much as sending information. We need it as a way that they engage with each other, of course.
Yes.
And adding to that, I think that a great feature would be video calls. We get that often from students and ambassadors. Sometimes I see also in the conversations they have, they keep going and going, like they already made a new friend or something. Great. And they often also say, well, I would like to tell you more. And I think a video could make it more personal. So that would be, I think, also a great addition.
Very, very good food for thought there, actually. Great. So what I think we'll have to do now is just wrap up. Thank you all so much for contributing with some great ideas and tips. Like I said at the beginning, the speakers will go into the speakers lounge after this event, and we'll be happy to answer any more questions. I know there were some more questions that we didn't get to answer, but thank you so much for joining us today. Hi, Poppy.
Hello, that was fabulous. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing those insights. And I think it was really great to see how at 3 very different institutions you use peer-to-peer and work with your student ambassadors very differently. And well done for handling that last question. That came from Commercial and the Unibody team. I think that was a tricky one. So some lovely answers there, and I think some work for us to get on with creating those magical products.
Yep, I've made notes already.
Fab. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Next up, we've got Laura Ewens, another one of our customer success managers, joining us for a quick interview before her session. So thank you, Sana, Denise, and Sharon, and Carolina, and have a good day.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for everything. Bye.